Welcome back to Texas Rye Whiskey Studies, episode number 24 for my National Rye Whiskey Tournament, episode number 16. Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Thursday, June 25th, 2026, where it is currently 92 degrees. I am reviewing 12 rye whiskeys that come in below 90 proof, and then after every second whiskey, we do a one-on-one competition, a blind match, with the goal being to find out which rye is my favorite. We are in the final two whiskeys now. So just the facts. Today, we are studying Old Overholt 86 proof, which I did a review of about 2 years ago on my Stab the Dragon channel, episode number 178. This is 86 proof, aged for 4 years, non-chill filtered, and widely available in Fort Worth for about $20. Tasting notes: light and spicy, maybe grassy, hints of citrus, lemon, much less sweet than a bourbon, some hints of vanilla. I gave it a score of 80. A letter grade for drinkability, a solid B. My recommendation: would I recommend it for someone new to rye who wants to try, dip their toe in, so to speak, with the rye world? While the price and availability are good for a beginner, I think I would need to know their taste profile a bit more. If they are more into bourbons, then I'm going to point them to somewhere else. This is nowhere close to a bourbon-esque rye. If they really want a spicy, almost classic rye, then yeah, perhaps this one is good for that. And for the price, it really is decent. All right, let's pour a glass and get into the history of this whiskey. This brand is now owned by the James B. Beam Distilling Company, who is in turn owned by the Japanese company Suntory World Spirits. This is America's oldest continuously produced whiskey brand, founded in West Overton, Pennsylvania in 1810 by Abraham Overholtzer, a German Mennonite farmer. And his father, Henry, had carried on the tradition of making rye whiskey from the Germans. By 1843, Boston newspapers were advertising Old Overholt here, or Overholt's Old Rye Whiskey is what it was called then, one of the very first whiskey brands to use advertising. And by the late 1880s, the distillery had begun bottling its whiskey, and Old Overholt had become a national brand. In 1919, Henry Clay Frick, Abraham Overholt's grandson, died, and his business partner, Andrew Mellon, took over the company. Thus, the Overholt family lost ownership. Now, if you recognize those two names, then you are an apt student of American history, because Frick and Mellon were big business guys in late 19th century, early 20th century America. In fact, Andrew Mellon eventually had to sell his interest in the company because during Prohibition, Old Overholt received one of those special allowances to produce medicinal whiskey, and Andrew Mellon at that time was the Secretary of Treasury for President Warren G. Harding. And so, some people looked at this as a conflict of interest, and so he was pressured to sell the company for political reasons, and the brand passed to National Distillers Products in 1932. During World War II, the brand was producing industrial-grade alcohol for the war effort. And then after the war, rye whiskey had fallen on hard times. Bourbon was king at the time. And so, the brand was produced by a variety of distilleries over the next 30 years and was the only national brand of rye whiskey left standing during that time. In 1987, the brand was sold to Jim Beam, which moved production to Kentucky, and the brand became a Kentucky rye. The brand was a favorite of some presidents. Grant and Kennedy supposedly both liked this. One Republican and one Democrat. This whiskey Has a great and accurate pedigree, very similar to Jim Beam's pedigree, which other whiskey brands envy, and then they get creative in an effort to mimic. So for history, 5 out of 5 for Old Overholt. Bottle, label, and marketing. The bottle is a very simple, straight-walled, brown glass standard that Jim Beam uses with some of their cheaper brands. Now, that being said, I like the brown glass. I'm a fan of colored glass. Even though I know clear glass, you get to see the actual liquid. Uh, but nonetheless, I think colored glass is attractive for whatever reason. Did have the plastic screw cap, though. It's got a very nice looking label. It looks antiquated. It's got a pic of Abraham Overholt there. The almost hidden date of establishment of 1810. It's born in Pennsylvania, made in Kentucky. But right above his picture is the 1810 date, which you can't see. My lighting is terrible. There you go. So, a lot of whiskey companies put early dates on their label. I rode Michter's pretty hard for their 1753 date. It's like they had nothing to do with that. Totally unrelated. But this is legit. Okay. So, bottle label and marketing. Marketing, I don't recall seeing any advertisements really, but it is represented well on the James B. Beam Distilling website. And I've always seen it available at all liquor stores. So this is pretty widely available. So bottle label and marketing, 4 out of 5 points. Appearance. Let's look in the glass since we have the brown glass in the bottle. This is a medium gold. It shows its age at 4 years. So that's, very close to apple juice, a little bit darker than apple juice maybe. And that's, for appearance-wise, that's a solid 3 out of 5. Composition. Well, let's take a sip here. Composition. The official mash bill is not given anywhere that I could find. However, the fact that they're calling this a Kentucky rye now, Pennsylvania ryes are going to be real close to, 100% rye or 95.5. But a Kentucky rye is going to be 51% to about 75%, somewhere in there. And the rest is going to be corn, a little bit of barley. This doesn't taste like it's a barely legal rye. This really tastes like it's heavier in the rye to me. So I couldn't really guess, but I'm thinking this is way over 51% rye. I might be wrong. And again, the roots of this whiskey go back to the Monongahela rye of Pennsylvania. So mixing corn with rye became a thing in Maryland, and then it's more common even in Kentucky. And so the website emphasizes this is now a Kentucky rye. And I don't know if that's just branding or if it does talk about the mash bill subtly. I don't know. They do emphasize drinking it neat or on the rocks. So for a little bit of lack of clarity, the composition is going to be docked some points, but because of this brand, the history of this brand also affects it. So, and it's non-chill filtered, 86 proof, 4 years. So, there's some advantages here, but 12 out of 15 points. Nose. Light and spicy, grassy. Some hints of citrus or lemon. Not really a sweet nose, but spicy, peppery. I get a hint of vanilla in there, so that's good. 8 out of 10 for the nose. Taste. The taste is true to the nose with the spice It's much less sweet than a bourbon, but it's still got some sweetness. And I do get hints of vanilla, and that's unusual for me. And it's unusual with a rye for me. Touch of lemon, perhaps. Pine needles. Yeah. See, and that's what I get a lot of that with ryes. So there's some kind of an evergreen pine needle flavor. This is very pleasant. It's a nice sipper, neat. It's not going to rock your world, but it's solid. So 20 out of 25. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish. The website said full-bodied. Well, this does not feel thin in any way, shape, or form. It's got a decent mouthfeel, but the full-bodied thing, I'm not convinced on that. It has a nice appropriate burn level, though. For 86 proof, lots of spice and tingles. I'm going to say it's got a low-grade burn in the mouth to the back of the throat. It doesn't really go up to the sinuses or down the chest, but this is an appropriate burn. And I like a burn. You know, I can handle lots of burn. I was raised eating hot peppers, but so I'm going to say that mouthfeel burn is really very, very nice. Finish, it's decent, but you know, again, that website says full-bodied, balanced, and very flavorful. Balanced, yeah, but mid-range in length. It's not real flavorful on the finish, but it's decent. That pine needle note and the lemon, the vanilla, they do linger for a little while. So 12 out of 15 for mouthfeel, burn, and finish. Well, now let's talk about versatility. I have always been a fan of Old Overholt brand, and this is one of the whiskeys that I have almost continuously stocked for 15 years or however long I've been drinking whiskey. And so it's always in my cabinet, either this 86 proof or the 100 proof. So versatility, I've always preferred it neat. I don't think the 86 proof it might hold up to ice, but you know, I don't do whiskey on the rocks much at all unless it's overproof. So I think this might be a good mixed drink with something like Sprite or 7-Up, ginger ale. I did make an old fashioned the other day. I used turbinado sugar cube, Angostura, and black walnut bitters, orange peel, and a dark cherry. And that old fashioned was okay, but not outstanding. So let me try another old fashioned and see if I can make it a little bit better. Stand by. And I'm back. I made an old fashioned, and this is a total experiment. Who knows how this is going to turn out? You'll see I put a lemon slice in there. I was getting lemon on the nose and on the taste, and I wanted to lean into that. Now, I did put some orange bitters in here along with Angostura, and just some plain white sugar or some simple syrup that I made. So last time I used the dark turbinado and some walnut bitters along with the Angostura and a cherry. There's no cherry in here this time, just that lemon slice. So let me see if this is a total disaster. Now, the first time that I had lemon in an old fashioned was this past March 2026. We went on a trip across the South for a family event in Georgia. And twice I ordered an old fashioned 3 times. Once it had orange wedge in it, and twice I had lemon peel in it. And it's like I'd never had lemon peel in an old fashioned. Well, I got back home, I researched it, and sure enough, a lot of people put lemon in an old fashioned. And after drinking Old Overholt and getting that lemon flavor, I saw the practicality of that. So here, that actually works. Okay. This is not bad. This is not going to be one of my favorites, but it's not bad. A little bit of orange bitters, a little bit of Angostura bitters, some very simple syrup. And that's not bad, but still, I don't know. I'm struggling with this one. Struggling with Old Overholt in a mixed drink, which a lot of people say, hey, that's what it's, best at maybe. I think it's best neat. So versatility, flexibility, 4 out of 5, because I'm struggling with the cocktail aspect of this. Price, value, and availability. Total Wine had this for $19.99. Goody Goody for $20.99. Specs for $19.99. So right about $20. Great availability, righteous price. But for $20, can I get a better rye whiskey? About $20, I can get a Jim Beam rye. It's going to be close to that. And I just flavor profile, I'm going to lean towards the Beam. Okay. However, I like drinking this neat. And so, again, I've always had this stocked in my shelf for 10 or 15 years. So price, value, and availability, I think it's got good value for the price. Wide availability, 9 out of 10 points. Bonus points. The history, the bottle and label are all pretty good. The flavors are good, not so much flexibility. In reality, I think my flavor profile and preferences may have changed over the years. This one is no longer going to be one of my favorites that it once was, but nonetheless, I think it's still a decent whiskey for the price. So only 3 out of 5 for bonus points. So this gives me a total score of 80 and a letter grade for drinkability, a solid B. And I think that this score is very close to, I did a review of this whiskey 2 years ago. And I think my score is about the same as it was, but I think the points are in different places. Okay. So 2 years ago, I gave this a score of 80 and a letter grade of B, but I think what changed a little bit, then I gave the bottle, label, and marketing a solid 5. Composition, a little bit less at 11. Appearance was the same. Nose was a 7. This time I gave it an 8. My nose has improved. And so that's why that point total was an 8 this time. Taste back then was a 21. Now it's a 20. And I think that's because my taste profile has changed a little bit. Mouthfeel, burn, and finish then was a 12. Now it was still a 12. Versatility and flexibility now is a 4. And then it was a 4. And price, value, and availability back then was a 9. And still a 9. Bonus points then, I gave it 3. And again, here I gave it 3. So it's very similar. My scores from 2 years ago and today are very, very similar. So, it hasn't changed much. But nonetheless, I think this is a solid, inexpensive rye for $20, $21. And if somebody wants to get into ryes, this might be a good starting place, although I'd probably recommend something else and maybe a little bit higher price. So, again, without knowing the mash bill for sure, it seems like as a Kentucky rye, it probably has a higher percentage of rye than other Kentucky ryes. So it's nowhere near as sweet as something like Elijah Craig rye or Woodford Reserve that are both closer to 51% rye. Those ryes taste much like bourbon. Okay. So if somebody is wanting to transition from bourbon to rye, I'm going to recommend something other than this one, right? Uh, the price and availability are great, but I would need to know more about their taste profile before I would recommend something. But again, the history here is great. So, all right, next up in this rye tournament, the Canadian rye, lot 40, coming up next. And this will be the last of the 12 ryes that we study in the under 90 proof range. All right, and coming up next, if I can get it done, I should have done it today, but I just haven't been able to get it done. Today is the state of Virginia's birthday, and so I was going to do a Virginia whiskey, Courage and Conviction by Virginia Distilling Company. I was going to study the history of Virginia just a little bit, but I just have not been able to get that done. So, I'll try to do that in the next couple of days, and that'll be on my American Catechism channel. But for now, this is Texas Rye Whiskey Studies with Old Overholt out here.